what you call it, the learning journey, fusion today, day 17, Godot Engine. I'll zoom this out, Alt Windows key tab to get the workspaces. I'm still holding Windows key and I'll release the tab. So this is shortcut for workspaces, and I'll press now and hold Windows key control and press left. And now if I hit release the keys, it stays on this screen, and I hit escape, it should bring me to the selected workspace. I didn't read the official shortcuts for the working with workspaces, but I like when I can. It reminds me of Linux. I want to get back to Linux, especially because of the workspaces that are, when doing some whatever productive stuff on PC, on Linux, workspaces are very, very comfortable. So I don't need to reach for the mouse, as that everybody knows who works on computers productively, mouse just breaks the flow. Oh, I've been looking through these nice, gorgeous blogs, websites about Godot. I think I'll ditch that. I won't be going at the moment through the kids can code stuff. I don't know what's the deal. I lost the appeal over there. I'm not sure. It appeared to me today as obvious, like maybe it's because it's a black background, like dark theme website, but also the way they made their the way they write stuff there is sometimes not concise, let's say. It's not about the writing style. Well, actually, writing style, if I take in consideration that it's hard to follow. They have only one exact tutorial, for example, that you can follow and and get to the expected result. But other articles are more like recipes, so you either apply it to existing project or just read through it. But they are somewhat not too vague, too specific, let's say. So I looked went through and searched in detail through a few more websites, blogs for Godot, and I think I found few interesting ones. And I think I might take some time go through this now. This is about tile maps. If I also look back to the previous stream about Godot, what I did was, what was I doing? Yeah, I said I'll be focusing more on 2D aspects for my skill level. 3D is a bit more complex, and to work with 3D in Godot, I think it's not just doable, but it requires more creating more elaborate projects. It's possible to do simple games, but if I'm gonna do something simple and if I want to be more efficient, I don't need to overshoot or I don't need is it the term overhead? I can just do the simple 2D stuff to learn, like without stress of extra dimension. And I'll stick to version 4. I looked at the content available on Kids Can Code, and their tutorial recipe base on Godot version 3 is larger. Version 4 is a bit more scarce on material. It is similar on other places. Some authors started, I don't know, a few years ago, and they covered maybe in depth Godot during version 3 was current, and then they reduced the amount and frequency of publishing articles, while on other places, like I think this dev 2, they have many more, they have more than one author, so it covers the whole range, time range, few years back and forth, over up to the Godot version 4. And I also revisited is this GD Quest? Yes, and I've noticed following one link that they actually don't sell all the content. There are some like development philosophies, practices elaborated here for free to read, like events bus specifically for Godot. So actually to lean on what I previously mentioned, to expand on that, what I've been doing in previous stream, it was what I did was started and said, like I mentioned, I will go with more simple stuff and not waste on elaborate tutorials, spend time doing a game that I'm not interested in. I will go through these articles that cover important topics that relate to asset management or actually resource management, depends from what scope or level in the implementation we are looking from the game design level, like a more higher level, more abstract from code, and how to implement those, by what means, what methods, like translate the game idea, rules, screenplay into the actually tooling. How would that translate into, for example, here that I'm doing recently in this series, Godot. So one of those things is the global and singletons, or the auto-load functionality of Godot projects that allows creating and loading right away on the project run. loading and creating global states accessible from anywhere in the project, for like game state, managing the scenes and resources in the game for the game aspect, gameplay aspect, logic. But again, those are things good to know, and I'm happy to that they came to my attention as methods or practices in development that are standardized. And as a matter of fact, have a mean and have been already introduced in Godot through the script, or what we would call maybe now patterns, design patterns, or even code patterns. The patterns. So GD Quest is one more resource, very useful. What did I look at here? This is the main. Is this main page? No, it's an article from Godot by Godot community about GScript, maybe best practices and conventions. Book of notes. Okay, this is interesting. Book of notes. There is one author here that said, okay, let's well, it's not that the notes are not described in the documentation, but this author style is maybe doing it more practically in detail with examples like with images, or it's split into the nodes: general intro, 3D nodes, 2D nodes. What do I have here? This is Pomodoro projects, like the recipe how to challenge for exercise while learning game development, also specific maybe to Godot. And here's one interesting tutorial making a platformer, and could be more comprehensible than once game tutorials like from Kids Can Code. But I think it is reasonable to expect that each author after a half into the article starts to, I don't know, starts to avoid detailed step-by-step explanations of, I don't know, procedures how to do something, but what I've seen now, for that reason I went from top to bottom of this one, just to make sure how consistent it is with the presentation. And this time I would like to settle and choose one of the articles with like a tutorial, specific lesson. But then, so I can do something like custom on my own. And for that reason, I'm quite curious about the tile maps. Because actually it later, in a later article on this GoTut website, GoTut, Godot tutorials and tips. There is a later article that talks about the again a development practice, explores the concept of composition in Godot which is involved or applied to creation of complex game objects by combining simpler reusable components. I guess also we can call it module. It allows for more modular approach creating how to do it. And I would like to make also some assets that I would like to reuse, because I didn't prepare any or adapt any of my old illustrations that I'd like to maybe see how to adopt, for example, hand-drawn stuff, materials into format that's to have it possible to import into game as an asset, like a texture or sprite. What style, how to standardize for a style for a given project for consistency during the same game. There was one article that described like some technical details about the different game genres, game engines, and visual styles. And I closed that article and I didn't find it again, but in general it speaks about couple concepts like whether a game would be described as visually as pixel art, 2D, 3D, or 3D pixel art like Minecraft, and what would take into creating assets for each style. Or maybe like modern games for, let's say, mobiles that look like a scalable vector art or more like cartoony flat art style that would be created. Most practical would be to use the Inkscape as a free vector art graphics application. Or Blender for creating 3D models and applying textures. Well, I see for myself Blender best suitable to create any asset for the game, even sprite sheets, because designing in Blender, it supports also 2D animation. But the animation is, animating in Blender that's what it's for, in part of all other features that it has. And for 2D games even, doesn't need to be 3D game. Blender you can export to, I don't know, you can export animation from of a model from above, and export the frames animated as a sprite sheet or for a side platformer or whatever. Or you export the model animation from one side. What would that be called? Orthogonal projection, like front facing or side facing. Whether it be a scroller or platformer. and later it's possible to expand on that same model, same assets created, and create, I don't know, a sequel in add it to a third dimension and have same design style applied to a sequel of a game in 3D if necessary. That's why it's good. I'm still far from that, especially animating in Godot, in the Blender. Well, it's not that it takes too much skill. It takes actually skill in patience. There is all these things take a lot of work. So what about the composition in Godot? Well, it's good because it's the thing I was looking for. Understanding composition, reusability, modularity, flexibility, consistency. But here right away it refers to a tile map, the tile map article previous to this article, so I'll go with that because that will allow me to play, and I want to play. Actually, I like the idea of animation is appealing to me, as it gives me the results right away, and it deals with, I don't know, working with graphics application. That is attractive to me at this point. And one other thing to close this segment is that the GD Quest has also articles about Godot signals and singletons. And where would I find? So they have courses that they sell, but there are some tutorials here. Godot Tours 101, GD Editor, make games, create 3D character control. I think this coding the entity component or so look through one of their. Oh, this will be interesting. I like to work with Krita, as I understand it supports animation, and I like the aspect of working with illustration that's not strictly, I don't know, that is more like a digital painting approach, meaning controlling the brushes and not have to deal with the super technical, I call it super technical to exaggerate, the vector, using of vector graphics application. So what is this? What did I open? Okay, this is the Godot editor, how to use. I'm looking for this thing. Is this the, yeah, this is the great article. It's again a component entity dash component pattern in Godot. Very good article, amazing. It describes two approaches to a problem like reusability, either with inheritance from classes, and it offers a solution for a specific use case in Godot. Like using components, so something that is not right away exposed in Godot. It takes this introduction to lay down the problem and show how it's solvable in GD script And I like where it goes, as it describes actually how one can implement a, here we can see, I think later on, no, implement like a, well, system to track and use components. So you could stop the entire couple. There is a paragraph. So I think here is the this would be laid down approach. So I think here is we have the introduction of a solution for Godot Engine script. By using type hints, you get much better auto completion on top of type safety, and starting in Godot 4.0 performance improvements. So the article covers development and using the and developing the code that is interactive during scripting. It provides code hinting or auto completion for implemented code, classes, objects, custom ones, and how to actually implement the logic in script and implement the component like oriented development design. Instead of using inheritance or duplicate code, we can attach reusable components to our entity. So I'll read this. In a pure implementation of ECS, components are instances of structures made up of data. We implement them in such a way they do not know what they are attached to. For a version that works well in Godot, you can assign components as nodes and have them as children of an entity. That way you can instantiate them in scenes and update their properties in the inspector. That's important. Your components should still work without knowing what their parent is. It shouldn't matter that you attach a, for example, power receiver to a battery, a car engine, or a lamp. One of these patterns strengths is that you can reuse components anywhere. You can do this by making them simple classes that are all about data and signals. Another object will configure and emit their signals, likely the parent entity. So what would that mean, or how would that reflect in the game in terms of gameplay and implementation? It allows for flexibility in development. From that aspect, and it reflects in the gameplay actually, like not limiting the, actually allowing variety of interactions, that we could say that way. For example, in a type of exploration game, it would be possible to implement, I don't know, like a conversation to a player about inventory stats, statistics, about whichever object or item it encounters in the game world, and without, well, of course, so the game would be richer. There would be an implementation of a large variety of and a richer experience overall. But it takes this coding pattern, philosophy or concept to be applied during development. It takes some, well, it's a bit an abstract concept in coding in general, and it includes custom classes, and here is actually the laid down examples how to implement that to work with Godot. So it also works in, it includes script, GD script, and the game editor's user interface, the inspector panel part that can show in the user interface of the editor the members and properties of a underlying class as defined in the code. And that would be that for this segment. Short break.